Hey everybody, welcome back. It is our first video of 2021. Super exciting. So in this video, we are going to look at how to use arrays and functions together, a couple different applications based off of what we did starting in class this week. So for this program, not only am I going to use IOStream, I'm also going to put in some random number stuff. So put in your standard library and your time.h. And then keep in mind at the top of your main function, I know it's been a bit, don't forget to put in sran times 0 to kickstart your random number generator. So from here, again, our key purpose for doing this is to fill an array using not just your main function, but a separate function. So we'll start with that. It's going to be a void function, because there's nothing coming out of it. You're just taking an array and you're filling it in. So we're going to say fill array, and we're going to take the array, and I'm just going to simply put in int with the brackets, telling the computer that your parameter is an integer array. And then I'm going to put in a second one. I'm going to put in the size of the array. We'll talk about that here in a second. Down here, void fill array, int, we'll just call it ARR, that's the generic name for your array, and then int size. Okay, so let's do int nums, let's say. We'll keep it, we will keep it unfilled for now. I was going to put the empty braces, but I don't want empty braces. I want specific size braces. Put in size 10, so I'm going to fill it with 10 numbers. Of course, what I was misthinking was I was going to set equal to something, but no, we're not going to do that. We're going to do that down the function. And now we are going to call the fill array. We're going to send in nums, but then we're also going to send in 10. Now, of course, the size 10, let's say that I don't want to keep that as what we would call a magic number. Like, I don't want to put the fact that that's specifically 10 here. So what I can do separately, I can do int size. We can use our little trick. We can say size of nums divided by the size of nums 0, one of the elements of the array, and then put size in there. Now again, we will talk about some things with this to come, but for now, we're good. So we have the random number generator kickstarted here with the sran times 0. We're going to come down to fill array, and we're going to do a little for loop, because for loops and arrays go hand in hand. So int x equals 0, x goes up to, but does not include the size, and I'm simply going to say arr x equals, we'll keep it very simple. Let's do rand mod. Let's go with 10 plus 1. So a number from 1 to 10. Okay. Notice my fill array function is called fill array, not fill and print. Did this on purpose. The purpose of fill array is only to print. It's void, so there's no return. I'm going to come back up here. I'm going to make another function, print array. As we've talked about with functions, don't have your function do more than one task. It's not fill and print, it's fill and then separately print. So I'm going to fill it up first, and then I'm going to print the array using the same parameters, nums and size, and I'm going to come down here, void print array, int arr, int size, and we will say, little for loop, go from 0 up to size, x plus plus, c out. I'm going to print out the position in the array, x, then a tab, and then arrx, and l. So, two separate functions. We're passing this through. Let's run it and see what happens. And here's your list of numbers. Notice there could potentially be repeats. In this case, there are several repeats. We have a couple 6s, looks like we have a couple 2s, and all of that's perfectly fine. It's not like we're making a function that has no repeats. It's simply, hey, here are your numbers randomly. Okay, so really quick, before we talk about the other applications of finding average, min, and max, let's say that I don't have a parameter here. Let's say I'm going to change this so that I don't send in the size. Now, what are the ramifications of that? I'm going to take this line of code here, cut it out. Let me take this out. Let me take that out. Let me take this out here. Let me take this out here. So our functions are no longer based off of the array and the size. It's simply the array. So I'm going to paste this line into here. And of course, ARR is the name of our function, or name of our array, not num. So we now have it generically, and then we need to put it here as well. So we're putting the size parameter inside the array, not outside. Will it work the same way? The answer is no. The answer is no. Now, why is that? Well, it's actually really pretty complicated. C++ deals with memory a little bit differently with parameters of functions. So you're passing this array as a copy of nums. It's not the original nums. And so because of that, the size of is a little bit different. It uses something called a pointer, which we have not talked about yet. But essentially the way it works is that ARR is a copy of nums, and so there's not a separate new ARR array. You're not making 10 new locations. You're using one variable to say, hey, I'm referring to this. It's what we would call a reference variable. And again, I know we haven't talked about any of that yet because it's rather complicated. It's one of the toughest things that we do in C++. But to dial this down, the TLDR, the too long didn't read version, you still must send in the size of your array in as a parameter because of the way the functions treat parameter copies of arrays. Okay, so in essence, what I'm saying is that this variant, taking out the size, will not work. You must keep the size in here. So int, we're good here. We're going to put a comma 10, or comma size. We'll put size back here in a second, comma size. Now, of course, like you could put 10. But again, we're trying to be generic here. We're not trying to be specific with like, oh, it's always 10, because if I were to change that, then I'd have to make several changes. Meaning, if you had 10, 10, 10, well, you'd have to change that, which means you'd have to change these two as well. By making this a variable, I can make this any size I want, and that's the only thing that would change, because size is a variable based off of that math, the ratio of the whole size. So let's go put this back in size, and then take this out, and then put this back in int size. Okay, so it should be back to normal. Let's just double check. So there's our 10 numbers once again. Remember, the numbers on the left are the positions, the numbers on the right are the numbers themselves. Okay, so finding the average. Okay, well this one, these are void because you're not returning anything, you're just modifying an array. And you're either modifying the array or you're printing the array. So there's nothing to return, but in this case, the average and the max, there are return values. So you're not returning integer. And in fact, I should correct myself because an average, it could potentially be a decimal, so double. Average. What are you going to send in? Well, guess what? Same thing. For the min and max, let's do array min. And why am I saying array min instead of min? Well, because min sometimes is a function that is built in. So we're not going to rename min. We're just going to use a different name or variation. So average could return a decimal, and then minimum, maximum returns an integer. Okay, so remember that void functions, you just call them. You don't cout or anything, but these ones you do. We're going to say cout, the average is, and then we're going to put average, send in nums, and size. You're going to see that come up an awful lot. And then I'm going to just copy and paste this. And I'm going to say the, let's see, minimum. Minimum is, and then we'll put maximum. And then array min, array max. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so now all we have to do is simply make our functions. And, these aren't too terrible to do. We've sort of done these before, just not with an array and a function, but the premise is the same. Double average, send in, again, we're just going to call it generic, ARR and size. The fact that I called it nums up top and then ARR down there, again, this is a copy. The fact that we call it size and size, again, it doesn't really matter if you have the same variable because of variable scope. These only exist in the function. So I will have a double total initialized to 0. We don't need to make how many numbers there are because we already know how many numbers there are. That's the size of the array. So do a little for loop. X goes from 0 up to size, x plus plus. Total equals total plus ARR x. So that's going to accumulate those. And then we are going to return the total divided by the size. Seems okay to me. Next, int array min, int ARR, comma int size. And then, of course, once we do that, we can also do the max. We'll do that down here. All right. So in this case, let's make a minimum value. And what is our potential minimum? Well, remember, and we've talked about this in the past, your minimum, we're going to set this equal to the int max, because that is the largest possible minimum number. Go from 0, go up to size, and then you're going to say if ARRX is less than the minimum, then it is your new minimum. So minimum equals ARRX. And then when we're done, we're going to return that minimum. Right? Don't need braces because one line. Looks good to me. The best part of this is I'm going to copy and paste it. Put it down here. Change it to maximum. Copy, paste, paste, paste. Make that less than become greater than. Make int max become int min. And voila. It's going to work. Let's find out. There we go. Here are your numbers. Let's trust that the average is 5.4. Of course, the average should be around, 5-ish, because we have random numbers from 1 to 10. Our minimum is indeed 1. Our maximum is indeed 9. Let's just test it again, see if we get anything weird. We get 1 and 9 again. Let's try and get one that's not 1 and 9. 2 and 9. There's 2. So minimum seems like it's working okay. Let's try and get a maximum that's not 9. Let's try it. 10. Well, there we go. All right, so you've seen some applications here. And again, obviously the most important thing is not just the application, but also remember that when you do this, you must send in that size. Thanks for watching.